Hey, it is day 18 of my Hypersomnia video diary, and I'm finally getting around today to go through what I could find out about Vyvanse, and I'm also just going to do a self update, where I am in the month, how I'm feeling, how my medicine increase is feeling, and just in general, how my symptoms are treating me in the month of October 2017. Alright, so Vyvanse, just a little bit of background on Vyvanse. It was approved for medical use in adults in 2008 in the United States. The chemical name is actually Lisdexamfetamine. So just on its chemical name, it is amphetamine, just a different version of amphetamine. Like you have baseline amphetamine, and then you also have dextroamphetamine, amphetamine salt. This is and then you also have levoamphetamine, which I explained in the in the use on Adderall versus dextroamphetamine. So something else interesting and different about lisdexamfetamine and why they probably developed it. It's actually an inactive prodrug, which is very interesting. I already said interesting, so it's double interesting. What that means is that the drug actually doesn't become active just by eating it. It doesn't become, most drugs, prescriptions that you take, you rely on your stomach to digest them in order to break down the components to then deliver it to your blood. Pardon me. Lisdexamfetamine actually is not affected at all by the stomach, and it's just processed once it gets into your lower intestine, I believe. So it actually only becomes active when it's in your bloodstream. So you can't, it's interesting to note. There's a few reasons why they would create something like that. For one, it allows your blood to process it. Your stomach is kind of unreliable in a sense at processing medications. So when it's given directly to the blood, your blood takes it and then delivers it to the brain. It's kind of unaffected more so. It's a different chemical process that happens there. So, and the other reason is that because of that, you can't snort it, smoke it, whatever. It has to be introduced into the blood to actually become active. So there's a drug, a drug awareness legal reason to do so as well. Let's see. So it is the first biochemically acting long stimulant to be released biochemically into the blood rather than mechanically by the stomach. This another benefit of the idea of doing this is that they thought that it would increase its life, its active life upon your physicalness and your brain or your central nervous system by about 13 hours. I've found from reports it's a bit less, but that was the thought. So they wanted to, just like Adderall XR and there's Dexedrine IRs or I'm sorry, XRs as well. They wanted to try to release the drug throughout the day, for one, so that the person taking it feels awake continuously and there's not a, like a drop off like you would get from an instant release tablet. And then the other reason obviously is, to reduce the potential for abuse with that. So same thing again with Adderall XRs. So the only difference with Vyvanse is, again, it's lisdexamfetamine. So what that means is it's actually just it becomes dextroamphetamine in the blood, but it's dextroamphetamine combined with lysine, which is an amino acid. I can't really explain why they did that, but I just wanted to then further note here. So because there's no, and this is a quote from Wikipedia, because there's no free dextroamphetamine present in lisdexamfetamine or Vyvanse, the dextroamphetamine does not become available again until once it's in the blood. So it's a relatively sophisticated biochemical process that they developed here, for multi reasons. So the general claim on Vyvanse is it takes up to an hour to start working, which that statement right there to me is kind of not scary but alarming. Adderall, I take instant release Adderall and time release Adderall. The instant release Adderall is something like 15 minutes, maybe up to a half hour at most. Vyvanse, is saying, it's an hour, which is the same for the Adderall time release for me at least. So taking an hour to start working means you have to plan yourself an hour out before you are even mentally awake. So that would mean if you had to be to work at 8 o'clock and start, and start with your day there, you're probably gonna have to take it at 7 or 6:30 or even 6:15, because you've got to get up and start getting ready for the day and actually start waking up. So that you'd have to consider the onset duration there. Pardon me. If you're thinking about switching to that. Again, reportedly they're saying it lasts up to 14 hours. What I'm reading from some case studies is about 10 hours at most. So usually they're always overestimating that, but it fluctuates per person too. So they're just giving an average, I'm guessing. There's lower acute tolerance rates, and what that means is it takes longer for your tolerance to build up to it. So over time, you'll have to keep increasing the dose to get to a sustainable level where you feel like you're actually awake, coherent, and things like that. So it has a lower tolerance, so you shouldn't have to up the dosage as much as you would maybe for dextroamphetamine or Adderall, but that's to be said still, or that's what the current reports are. And lastly, what Vyvanse claims is fewer side effects with longer duration. So they're claiming that a lot of the comparison I read was from Vyvanse, which is a time-release capsule, compared to an instant-release dextroamphetamine pill. So, of course, it's going to have a longer duration there because the dextroamphetamine isn't in an extended-release period. So kind of negating that one there, but we'll see. And the fewer side effects, I was happier to see that at first, and they go through a long explanation on their website and on Wikipedia about how it changes the prevalence, I think, of dextroamphetamine in the plasma, and maybe it makes it last longer there, and that has something, and it's a slower delivery, so that has something to do with the fewer side effects. But what I'm reading, and I'll post the link to the reports and where I found them, but what I'm reading from people is it actually has some pretty bad side effects. Again, you'd have to look at the whole population of people taking it and for what they're taking it for. That's what makes it difficult sometimes in comparing medicines and reading case studies on medicines for things that are used to treat hypersomnia, because they're also used to treat other more popular things like ADD and ADHD. So sometimes I'm seeing the effects in reports from people that have diseases that aren't hypersomnia. So it's possible that someone with hypersomnia would have a different, maybe you wouldn't get a migraine, whereas someone with ADD would, because there's something still, a little different happening there in the brain. But this is all I have. This is all the data I have to go on, so I have to use it. So what I saw is the most reported side effects, and seemed to be consistent with everyone reporting, was headaches, and not just headaches, but migraines that were sometimes intolerable. A lot of sweating, which I'll throw out there. Adderall definitely and dextroamphetamine make me sweat more than normal. Definitely, I have an elevated body temperature. I would expect that from any amphetamine. But the next one was insomnia, and again, the Adderall doesn't. I'm able to understand my body's reaction to Adderall and when I'm taking my medicine and how it works for me, that insomnia is an extremely rare thing for me. So that being reported there, I just expect from, I feel like more people or other people are susceptible to insomnia rather than myself. But the last one that I saw a lot, though, that was kind of alarming was easy to irritate. And what people were saying is that they felt like it gave them, a short temper, like they were getting mad more often, and they were just more, in general, irritable. So that kind of blows. I will read two positive, and I'll grab two negative ones as well. These are two positive feedback as posted on Reddit for Vyvanse. The first one is the duration of action is much longer thanks to it being a prodrug to dextroamphetamine. Lisdexamfetamine is more consistent and more predictable plasma concentrations. More consistent and predictable plasma concentrations are maintained, which I kind of mentioned earlier, and so that's a good positive one. I read that and I was like, okay, cool. This second one is interesting too. It gets a little bit more in depth. It's optically pure, and it becomes optically pure dextroamphetamine. I looked up what chemically optically pure means, or can't say that. Optically pure means, and it has something to do with the way the chemical rotates into a position that light is able to pass through it cleanly or something. So I don't know if that matters in terms of making the drug better, but it's noted here. I see it. So and they say it becomes optically pure dextroamphetamine, and this of course means that it lacks undesirable and unnecessary isomer, or the undesirable and unnecessary L-isomer. L-amphetamine drastically favors norepinephrine release and therefore provides mostly peripheral stimulation, increased heart rate, vasoconstriction, which comprises of 25% of Adderall. There are no studies showing that levo or racemic amphetamine provides any benefit or wakeful promoting effects. Sorry for the stutter there. That interesting. That report is interesting. I saw the way that they explained Adderall and why they're using the L-amphetamine or the levoamphetamine in it, and it has something to do with increasing the duration there. So, but this I gotta get the other thing. This user is saying that that's potentially a bad thing. So, but coming from not a doctor, I'm not gonna speculate there too much. So I'll post these links as well. Coming from the negative side, from someone who was reported to have extreme sleepiness. Worst pounding migraine of my life. One moment I was fine, the next I was incapacitated due to the extreme throbbing pain in my crown, both sides of my temples and my eyes. I was sweating profusely. I threw up many times. I can't remember how much. I was soaked from head to toe. But contrastingly, this site was cool. They let them give a negative and positive side. Their positive side said, it really helps me hold down a job. Otherwise, I have a sleep disorder similar to narcolepsy and never know when I will fall asleep. It sounds like hypersomnia, whether it's at my desk or at work or driving on the interstate. I'm afraid to go off of it for this reason, but the headache migraine experience was the worst I've ever had. Please help. So that's kind of interesting. And migraines are no fun. I feel like I've had a dextroamphetamine-induced migraine before. Pardon me, I'm scrolling for another sleep report here. But what they're explaining sounds worse. So here's someone that had ADD and narcolepsy reporting on it. Dry mouth, dry eyes, small loss of appetite, easy to irritate. It was impossible to get angry, or it was impossible not to get angry at anything. That's kind of a short one there. Their positive experience was just improved concentration, alertness, and memory. I I did see some other people that said after they had been on Vyvanse for a few years that they felt like it had deteriorated their memory, which is kind of interesting as well and kind of scary. So that is all I have on Vyvanse right now. I haven't taken it myself. I don't know what it feels like, but it's something I'm looking into to potentially take in the future, after I discuss that with my doctor. So lastly, just an update on where I am in the month. I went to bed at 2 a.m. last night and slept until, I can't even remember exactly what time I got up, but it was I believe it was around 6 p.m. So that's 14 hours of sleep. Again, I'm baffled and confused at why my time-released Adderall aren't working in the morning. I've never had this type of consistency with them before. Again, though, I don't know why I'm doing a 14-hour sleep day while on the weeks that I am taking my medicine. And even on that note, it was my girlfriend that woke me up and basically said, come on, it's dinner time, we got to get up and things like that. And kind of like annoyed me to the point where I had to get out of bed, thankfully. But yeah, it's like I would have kept sleeping, and I really didn't want to stop sleeping when I woke up. So hopefully, since I didn't get up till 6 p.m., I took my regular dose of Adderall then, with the time release being taken much later in the day. Hopefully it helps, wake me up early tomorrow. Otherwise I'm gonna question it, but I'm still questioning it because it's been a few times this month now already where it's not waking me up in the morning anymore, which all that means is either it's not working anymore or I'm working less. So okay, that's the end for day 18. Not too sure what's coming up tomorrow, but we'll see. Still got a lot more to talk about, definitely. And now I'm just over the halfway point. Like I said, I was going to do about 35 days. So all right, well, have a great night or day or whatever it is for you, and hope you're awake.